Nora's hands trembled as she stepped off the dusty stagecoach into the afternoon sun of Rawhide, Wyoming territory, carrying nothing but a worn carpetbag and a letter that had changed her life forever. The year was 1878, and she had traveled nearly 2,000 miles from Philadelphia with high hopes and a guilty secret that gnawed at her conscience. The advertisement had been clear about wanting a woman of means, someone who could contribute to building a prosperous ranch. She had written back claiming her family would provide a modest dowry, but that had been a desperate lie born from hunger and homelessness. Her parents were dead, her brother's gambling debts had consumed everything, and she had been 1 week away from the poorhouse when she saw Marcus O'Sullivan's advertisement seeking a mail-order bride. The main street stretched before her, flanked by wooden buildings weathered gray by Wyoming winds. A saloon stood to her left, its painted sign faded. Across the way, a general store displayed tools and dry goods in the window. Men in dusty work clothes and wide-brimmed hats moved along the boardwalk, their boots creating a rhythm against the planks. A few glanced her way with curiosity, but no one approached. She clutched the letter tighter, reading the bold handwriting for what must have been the 100th time. Arrive in Rawhide on the 15th. I will meet you at the stage depot. Yours, Marcus O'Sullivan. Today was the 15th of September. She scanned the street, searching for a man who matched the brief description he had provided. Tall, dark hair, 26 years old, owner of a cattle ranch 10 miles north of town. That was all she knew about the man she had agreed to marry. A figure emerged from the livery stable across the street, and Nora's breath caught. He was indeed tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders broadened by hard work. Dark hair curled slightly beneath his hat, and even from this distance she could see the strong line of his jaw. He moved with the confident stride of a man comfortable in his own skin, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust as he crossed the street toward her. Miss Nora Miller. His voice was deeper than she had expected, with a warmth that surprised her. Yes. She managed to keep her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. Mr. O'Sullivan, Marcus, please. He removed his hat, revealing striking gray eyes that studied her with an intensity that made her want to look away, but she held his gaze. Welcome to Rawhide. I hope your journey was not too difficult. It was long, but I am glad to finally arrive. She paused, then added with more honesty than she intended, I was beginning to wonder if this was all a mistake. Something flickered in his expression, concern perhaps. Are you having second thoughts? No, I simply meant the uncertainty, not knowing what to expect. She straightened her shoulders, drawing on reserves of courage she did not entirely feel. I am here, and I intend to honor our arrangement. He nodded slowly, placing his hat back on his head. I have a wagon waiting. We should reach the ranch before dark if we leave now, unless you need to rest first. There is a boarding house in town. I would prefer to see my new home. The words tasted strange. Home. She had not had a real home in nearly 2 years. Marcus picked up her carpetbag with ease, his eyebrows rising slightly at its lightness, but saying nothing. He led her to a sturdy wagon hitched to 2 horses, their coats gleaming with health despite the dust. He placed her bag in the back, then offered his hand to help her up onto the seat. His palm was calloused and warm, his grip firm but gentle. They rode in silence for the first few minutes, leaving Rawhide behind as the landscape opened into rolling grassland dotted with sagebrush. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still holding snow despite the lateness of summer. The sky stretched endlessly blue above them, so vast it made Nora feel small and insignificant. It is beautiful, she said finally, breaking the silence. I have never seen so much open space. You are from Philadelphia. Marcus kept his eyes on the road ahead, his hands loose on the reins. Yes, the city. Everything was buildings and cobblestones and crowds. She watched an antelope bound across the grassland, startled by their approach. This is quite different. You think you can be happy here? The question held genuine concern, and she turned to look at him. I do not know yet, she answered honestly, but I will try. That is all I can promise. He glanced at her then, and something in his expression softened. That is more than many would offer. I appreciate your honesty. Guilt twisted in her stomach. If he valued honesty, what would he think when he learned the truth about her circumstances? The dowry he expected would never arrive because it had never existed. She should tell him now, before they went any further, but fear kept the words trapped in her throat. Tell me about your ranch, she said instead, hating herself for the cowardice. His face brightened with obvious pride. I have 200 acres of good grazing land and a herd of about 300 cattle. The house is small, just 3 rooms, but it is solid. I built it myself with help from my ranch hands. There is a good well and a creek runs through the property. He paused, then added, It is not luxurious, but it is honest work and a decent living. I am not afraid of hard work, Nora said. I can cook and clean, tend a garden, mend clothes. I will earn my place. I am sure you will. His tone was kind, but she heard the question beneath it. What about the dowry? When would that arrive? She should tell him. The words formed in her mind, clear and necessary. Mr. O'Sullivan, I must confess something. There is no dowry. I lied because I was desperate. But before she could speak, he continued. I should be honest with you as well, Nora. May I call you Nora? Of course. The ranch is doing well, but I have debts. I took a loan to buy more cattle last year, and the payment is due in 3 months. That is why I specified in the advertisement that I needed a bride who could bring some capital. The dowry you mentioned, even modest, would help me make that payment and expand the operation. Her heart sank like a stone in deep water. He was counting on that money. The ranch's future depended on it, and she had nothing to give him but lies. Marcus, I need to tell you something. The words came out barely above a whisper. He pulled the wagon to a stop, turning to face her fully. What is it? She forced herself to meet his eyes. There is no dowry. There never was. My family is gone, dead or lost to bad decisions. I had nothing left in Philadelphia except poverty and shame. When I saw your advertisement, I lied because I was desperate. I am so sorry. If you want to turn the wagon around and take me back to town, I will understand. I will not blame you. The silence that followed felt endless. Marcus's face showed a series of emotions, surprise, disappointment, something she could not quite name. He looked away, staring out at the vast Wyoming landscape, his jaw working as he processed her confession. You lied to me. It was a statement, not a question. Yes, I am deeply sorry. I was wrong to deceive you. You could have told me the truth in your letters. Would you have chosen me if I had? She knew the answer already, he sighed, removing his hat and running a hand through his dark hair. Probably not. I needed someone who could help with the financial burden. He replaced his hat and looked at her again. But you are here now, and you were honest with me before we went through with the marriage. That counts for something. What do you want to do? Nora held her breath. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he picked up the reins again. We keep going to the ranch. You still want to marry me? Even without the dowry, I asked for a mail-order bride because I need a partner, someone to share this life with. The money would have helped, yes, but maybe we can find another way. You said you are not afraid of hard work. If you mean that, truly mean it, then perhaps together we can make this work. Relief flooded through her so powerfully she felt dizzy. I do mean it. I will work harder than you can imagine. I promise you will not regret giving me this chance. I hope we both do not regret it. But his tone was not unkind, and when he glanced at her, she saw the ghost of a smile. "Though I will admit, you have already surprised me. Most women in your position would have kept lying, at least until after the wedding. I could not do that to you. You seem like a good man, and you deserve better than to be tricked into marriage. Well then, I suppose we are starting this arrangement with honesty between us. That is more than many marriages have." He clicked his tongue at the horses, and they resumed their journey. They talked more easily after that, the weight of her secret no longer pressing down on Nora's chest. Marcus told her about Wyoming winters, fierce and long, and the challenges of managing cattle in such harsh conditions. She described her childhood in Philadelphia, the good years before her father's illness, when they had been comfortable if not wealthy. "What happened?" Marcus asked gently. "My father was a clerk. He worked hard and saved carefully, but then he fell ill and the medical expenses consumed everything. He died when I was 17. My mother followed 6 months later, I think from grief more than sickness. My brother Thomas inherited what little was left. He promised to take care of me, but he had a weakness for cards and whiskey. Within a year, everything was gone and he disappeared one night, leaving debts behind. How did you survive?" "I worked as a seamstress, then as a maid in a boarding house. But the wages were barely enough for a room and one meal a day. I was growing thinner, weaker. Then the boarding house closed and I had nowhere to go." She paused, remembering those desperate weeks. "I saw your advertisement in a newspaper someone had left behind. It seemed like a miracle, a chance for a new life. And now you are here," Marcus said quietly. "And now I am here," she echoed. The sun was lowering toward the horizon when they crested a hill and Marcus pointed ahead. "There, that is home." The ranch house sat in a shallow valley with the creek Marcus had mentioned running behind it. It was indeed small, built of rough-hewn logs with a stone chimney rising from one end. A barn stood nearby, larger than the house, and several outbuildings dotted the property. Cattle grazed in the distance, dark shapes against the golden grass. It was simple, isolated, nothing like the Philadelphia she had known. And yet, as they descended the hill and approached the house, Nora felt something unexpected. Hope. A man emerged from the barn as they pulled up, older than Marcus with graying hair and a weathered face. He walked with a slight limp, but moved with the efficiency of someone long accustomed to ranch work. "George, this is Nora Miller," Marcus said, climbing down from the wagon. "Nora, this is George Patterson. He has worked for me since I started the ranch. Pleased to meet you, miss." George touched his hat politely. "Welcome to the O'Sullivan Ranch." "Thank you." Nora accepted Marcus's hand as he helped her down from the wagon. "Is everything all right here?" Marcus asked George. "All quiet. Had to move the herd from the north pasture. Creek was running low, but they are settled now." George's eyes moved between Marcus and Nora with obvious curiosity, but he was too polite to ask questions. "Good, thank you. We will talk more in the morning." Marcus picked up Nora's carpet bag and gestured toward the house. "Come, I will show you inside." The interior was sparse but clean. They entered directly into the main room, which served as kitchen and living area. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with a simple wooden table and chairs near the window. A cookstove sat in the corner, more modern than Nora had expected. 2 doors led to what she assumed were bedrooms. "That is my room," Marcus indicated the door on the right. "This one can be yours until we marry." He opened the left door to reveal a small room with a bed, a dresser, and a washstand. "It is not much." "It is perfect," Nora said, and meant it. She had spent the last month sleeping in a crowded room with 6 other destitute women. This small, clean space felt like luxury. Marcus set her bag on the bed. "I will give you some privacy to freshen up." When you are ready, come back out and we can discuss our plans." After he left, closing the door behind him, Nora sank onto the bed and allowed herself a moment to simply breathe. She had done it. She had crossed the country, confessed her lies, and Marcus had still brought her to his home. The hard part was far from over. She still had to prove herself worthy of his faith, help him save his ranch, and navigate the strange waters of their arrangement. But for now, she was safe. She washed her face and hands in the basin, changed into her only other dress, one that was less travel-worn, and pinned her dark blonde hair more neatly. Looking at her reflection in the small mirror above the washstand, she saw a woman who looked tired but determined. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on. When she returned to the main room, she found Marcus stoking a fire in the cook stove. He had removed his hat and jacket, and she noticed how his shirt stretched across his shoulders as he moved. "I am afraid my cooking is purely functional," he said without turning around. "I can manage eggs and beans and not much else." "Then allow me." Nora moved to the stove, gently elbowing him aside. "You have given me a home. The least I can do is cook you a proper meal." "There is not much to work with." Marcus opened a cupboard, revealing tins of beans, coffee, flour, and salt pork. "Then tomorrow we will need to go to town for supplies. But tonight I can make do." She had survived on less during her hardest times. At least here there was plenty of everything, even if the selection was limited. She set to work while Marcus watched, eventually settling at the table with a cup of coffee. As she prepared a simple but hearty meal of salt pork fried with onions she found in a bin, beans seasoned with the pork drippings, and biscuits made from the flour, she felt his eyes on her. "You move around a kitchen like you belong there," he observed. "I worked in kitchens for a while, between other jobs. I learned that good food does not require fancy ingredients, just care and attention." She pulled the biscuits from the oven, golden and steaming. They ate at the simple table as darkness fell outside. Marcus ate with obvious appreciation, finishing everything on his plate and accepting seconds. "This is better than anything I have had in months," he said. "If all your promises are as true as this one, we will do fine together." "I meant what I said. I will work hard. I will earn my place here." Nora met his eyes across the table. "But I need to understand what you expect from me, what our arrangement will be." Marcus set down his fork, his expression turning serious. "I think we should wait before marrying. Not long, a few weeks perhaps. Give us time to know each other, make sure this is what we both want. I will not hold you to our agreement if you decide this life is not for you. And the loan payment you mentioned," his jaw tightened. "I will find a way. I can sell some cattle early, maybe take on extra work. It will be harder without the dowry, but I will manage." "What if we find a way together?" Nora leaned forward. "You said you need to expand to make more profit. What if I help with that? I can work as hard as any ranch hand. I can also sew, maybe take in work from town. Every bit helps." "You would do that, Marcus. You showed me mercy when you could have left me stranded in town. You brought me here despite my lies. I intend to prove that your faith was not misplaced." She meant every word. This was her chance at a new life, and she would not squander it. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. We will work on it together, but I need you to understand how hard this life can be, especially for a woman used to city comforts. I have not had comforts in a very long time. I can handle hard work." Over the next days, Nora set about proving those words true. She rose before dawn to prepare breakfast for Marcus and George, hearty meals that fueled them through long days of ranch work. She cleaned the house thoroughly, scrubbing floors and windows, airing out rooms that had seen only bachelor care for too long. She planted a late-season vegetable garden, coaxing the resistant soil into rows where she sowed seeds for quick-growing greens and root vegetables. Marcus watched her transformation of his home with something like wonder. On the third evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains, he said, "You were not exaggerating about the hard work. I told you I would earn my place." Nora was tired to her bones, but it was a good tiredness, the kind that came from meaningful labor. "You have done that and more. The house feels different. It feels like a home." He paused, then added, "I have been thinking about our situation, about the loan." Nora's stomach tightened. "Yes. I spoke with George. He thinks if we can make it through the winter and sell the spring calves at a good price, we might have enough for the payment. It will be tight, but possible. Your help is making a difference. Food costs alone have dropped significantly now that we are not buying meals in town." "That is good news." Relief washed through her. "But there is something else I need to tell you." Marcus turned to face her, his expression serious in the fading light. "When I placed that advertisement, I was not just looking for help with the ranch. I was lonely, Nora. This is a beautiful place, but it can be isolating. I wanted a partner, someone to share this life with. The dowry mattered, I will not lie about that, but it was not the only thing I was seeking." Her heart beat faster. What were you seeking? Companionship, conversation, someone to build a future with. He met her eyes. "I know we barely know each other, and I know our start was complicated, but I find myself enjoying your company. The house feels less empty with you in it." "I feel the same," Nora admitted. "I was so frightened when I came here, terrified you would reject me once you learned the truth. But you have been kind and fair, more than I deserved. You deserve kindness, Nora. Whatever mistakes you made, they were born of desperation, not malice." "I can understand that." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and rough against hers. "I would like to move forward with our marriage plans if you are willing. Not because of any arrangement or obligation, but because I genuinely want to try building a life together." "I want that too," she whispered. "Then let us do this properly. Let us court each other, even if we are already living under the same roof. I want to know you, truly know you. And I want you to know me. When we marry, it should be because we choose each other, not because we feel trapped by circumstance." "I would like that very much." They sat together as stars emerged overhead, hands clasped, talking about their hopes and dreams. Marcus spoke of his vision for the ranch, expanding the herd, maybe raising horses as well as cattle. Nora described her love of books, how she had haunted the Philadelphia library in better times, losing herself in stories of distant places. "There is a small library in Cheyenne," Marcus said. "Next time we go for supplies, we could stop there. It is a longer trip, but worth it if you love reading." The thoughtfulness of the offer touched her deeply. "You would do that, of course. I want you to be happy here, Nora. This is your home now, and I want it to be a good one." Over the following weeks, they fell into a rhythm that felt increasingly natural. Nora managed the household while Marcus and George worked with the cattle. She proved adept at more than just domestic tasks, helping to mend fences, feed the horses, and even assisting with the branding of late calves. The work was exhausting. Her hands grew rough and her face bronzed by the sun, but she had never felt stronger or more capable. Marcus was patient as a teacher, showing her how to handle the horses, how to read the weather in the sky, how to watch the cattle for signs of illness. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their pasts, their fears and hopes for the future. Nora learned that Marcus had come west 5 years earlier after his own parents died in a fire. He had been 21 with a small inheritance and a desire to build something of his own. "I wanted land," he told her one evening as they worked together preparing dinner. In the city, I felt trapped, surrounded by buildings and crowds. Out here, I can breathe. Do you ever miss it? Philadelphia, I mean. Sometimes I miss the convenience, the theaters and restaurants, but not enough to go back. He looked at her thoughtfully. Do you? No. She was surprised by how certain she felt. I thought I might, but this place has gotten under my skin. The space, the sky, even the silence at night. I am starting to understand why you love it. As September gave way to October, the air grew crisp with the promise of winter. Marcus began preparations for the harsh months ahead, stockpiling hay, checking the barn for gaps that would let in cold air, ensuring the cattle had access to shelter. Nora helped where she could and focused on preserving food. The vegetables from her garden, wild berries she gathered from along the creek. One afternoon, as she was hanging laundry to dry in the cold wind, a rider appeared on the horizon. Marcus was out checking on a section of fence, and George had gone to town for supplies. Nora felt a flutter of unease as the figure approached, her mind going to stories she had heard of bandits and outlaws. But as the rider drew closer, she saw it was a woman, middle-aged and dressed in practical riding clothes. She pulled her horse to a stop near Nora and dismounted with practiced ease. "You must be the mail-order bride everyone in town is talking about," the woman said without preamble. "I am Margaret Collins. I own the ranch to the east. Nora Miller, pleased to meet you." Nora wiped her damp hands on her apron. Margaret looked her up and down with sharp blue eyes. "You look sturdier than I expected." "The last city woman who came out here lasted 3 weeks before running back east. I intend to stay." "Good. We need more women in this territory with backbone." Margaret smiled then, transforming her stern face. "I came to invite you and Marcus to dinner next Sunday. My husband Tom and I like to know our neighbors, and we are curious about you." "That is very kind. I will need to check with Marcus, but I am sure he will be pleased. He is a good man, that Marcus O'Sullivan. Worked hard to build his ranch. Kept to himself too much, in my opinion, but I suppose that is changing now." Margaret's eyes twinkled. "Bring your appetite. I make a roast that will stick to your ribs." After Margaret left, Nora felt oddly pleased. An invitation to dinner, a neighbor reaching out. It was a reminder that while the ranch felt isolated, they were not entirely alone out here. When Marcus returned and she told him about the invitation, his face lit up. "The Collins are good people. Tom helped me when I first started out, gave me advice on managing the herd through winter." "I am glad Margaret came by." Sunday arrived clear and cold. They dressed in their best clothes, which in Nora's case meant her least worn dress, and in Marcus's meant a clean shirt and a string tie he clearly wore rarely, judging by how he fidgeted with it. The Collins ranch was larger than Marcus's, with a substantial house and multiple barns. Margaret met them at the door, ushering them into a warm, lamp-lit interior that smelled of roasting meat and fresh bread. Tom Collins was a big man with a booming laugh and a firm handshake. "So you are the woman who finally got O'Sullivan to settle down," he said to Nora. "We were starting to think he would die a bachelor." "I am fortunate he was willing to take a chance on me," Nora replied. Over dinner, roast beef and potatoes and vegetables from Margaret's root cellar, they talked easily. Tom and Margaret asked about Nora's journey west, her impressions of Wyoming, her plans for the ranch. In turn, they shared stories of the territory, the hard winter of '73 when they had lost half their herd, the summer drought 2 years back, the gradual growth of Rawhide from a collection of tents to a proper town. "How are you managing with that loan payment coming due?" Tom asked Marcus directly. "I know you were counting on your bride bringing some capital." Nora tensed, but Marcus simply said, "We are managing. It will be tight, but we will make it work." If you need help, just ask. We ranchers have to look out for each other." "I appreciate that, Tom, truly." On the ride home, wrapped in blankets against the cold, Nora said, "They are wonderful people. They are. Their friendship means a great deal to me." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then added, "Tom is right that we need to look out for each other. This life is too hard to face alone." "You are not alone anymore," Nora said softly. He looked at her, his eyes warm in the moonlight. "No, I am not." When they reached home, Marcus helped her down from the wagon, but instead of releasing her immediately, he held her waist, looking down into her face. "Nora, I have been thinking. We have been together nearly 6 weeks now. I know we said we would take our time, but I find I do not want to wait any longer." His voice was low, earnest. "I want to marry you, not because of our arrangement, not because of obligation, but because I have come to care for you deeply. You are strong and brave and kind. You make this house a home. You make me laugh. I cannot imagine my life without you in it now." Her heart soared. "I feel the same. I came here expecting an arrangement, a marriage of convenience, but you have become so much more to me. I love you, Marcus." "I love you too." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gentle on her cheeks. "May I kiss you, please?" His lips met hers softly at first, tentative and sweet, then deeper as she responded, her hands coming up to grip his shoulders. The kiss held all the longing and affection that had been building between them, all the hope for their future together. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "Let us get married," Marcus said. "Soon, this week if possible." "Yes." Nora laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Yes, let us do that." They made the trip to Rawhide 3 days later. The town had a small church with a circuit preacher who came through once a month, but the justice of the peace could perform marriages any time. They stood before him in his office above the general store, with George and Margaret as witnesses, Margaret having ridden in when she heard the news. "Do you, Marcus O'Sullivan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." Marcus's hand was steady as he held Nora's. "And do you, Nora Miller, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." Her voice rang clear and certain. "Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Marcus pulled her close, kissing her thoroughly while George cleared his throat and Margaret laughed. When they broke apart, Nora saw joy reflected in Marcus's eyes, the same joy she felt flooding through her own heart. They celebrated with dinner at the boarding house, the best meal the establishment could provide. Tom Collins joined them, having ridden in separately, and they toasted the new marriage with whiskey for the men and apple cider for Nora and Margaret. "To new beginnings," Tom said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," they echoed. That night, returning to the ranch as husband and wife, Nora felt the strangeness of the situation. They had been living together for weeks, but everything was different now. This was not a trial period or an arrangement. This was marriage, a commitment for life. Marcus seemed to sense her nervousness. After they had cared for the horses and entered the house, he took her hands gently. "We do not have to rush anything," he said quietly. "I know this is all very new, even though we have been together. I want you to feel comfortable, to feel safe." "I do feel safe with you." Nora stepped closer, looking up into his face. "I want to be your wife in every way, Marcus. I am just a little nervous." "So am I," he admitted with a slight smile, "but we will figure it out together, just like everything else." He kissed her then, slow and tender, and led her to his room, their room now. They came together with a mixture of passion and gentleness, learning each other, building the intimate foundation of their marriage. Afterward, lying in his arms, Nora felt a peace she had never known. "I cannot believe how much my life has changed," she whispered into the darkness. "A few months ago I had nothing. Now I have everything." We have everything, Marcus corrected, pressing a kiss to her forehead. We are in this together, Nora. Whatever comes, we face it as partners. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of Nora's life. She and Marcus worked side by side during the days and fell into each other's arms at night. They talked for hours, sharing thoughts and dreams, learning the small intimacies of married life. She discovered that Marcus sang quietly to himself when he thought no one was listening, old Irish songs his mother had taught him. He learned that Nora liked to watch the sunrise with her coffee, standing on the porch wrapped in a shawl, her face turned to the growing light. Winter came hard and fast in early November, a blizzard that lasted 3 days and buried the ranch in snow. Marcus and George worked frantically to ensure the cattle had access to feed and shelter. Nora kept the fire going, hot meals ready, dry clothes warming for when the men came in half frozen from their work. On the 3rd day, when the snow finally stopped and a brittle sun emerged, Marcus came in with worry creasing his face. "We lost about 20 head," he told Nora grimly. "Mostly older cows who could not handle the cold. It is not as bad as it could have been, but it is still a significant loss." Nora's heart sank. "What does that mean for the loan payment?" "It means we are going to be cutting it very close." He sank into a chair, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "I will need to sell more of the spring calves than I wanted, which will impact next year's growth." She knelt beside him, taking his cold hands in hers. "We will manage. We will find a way." "I wish I had your optimism." But he smiled slightly, squeezing her hands. "It is not optimism. It is stubbornness. I refuse to lose this life we are building together." Over the next weeks, as winter settled in with bitter cold and intermittent storms, Nora found ways to contribute to their finances. She had brought her sewing skills with her from Philadelphia, and she put them to use. Word spread through the sparse community that Marcus O'Sullivan's wife could sew a straight seam and mend anything. Women began bringing her work, simple mending at first, then more complex projects, a wedding dress for a rancher's daughter, new curtains for the boarding house, alterations on store-bought clothes. She charged fair prices and worked by lamplight after her ranch duties were done. Marcus tried to protest that she was working too hard, but she was adamant. "We are partners," she reminded him. "I am doing my part." By January, she had saved nearly $30, which she presented to Marcus one evening, bills and coins counted out on the kitchen table. He stared at the money, then at her. "Nora, this is incredible. How did you manage this, one stitch at a time?" She smiled, tired but proud. "It is not enough to cover the loan, but it helps." Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "You are amazing, do you know that? You are the strongest person I have ever met." "We are strong together," she corrected, echoing his words from their wedding night. February brought a break in the weather. Several days of warmth that melted the top layer of snow and gave everyone a respite. Marcus and Tom Collins rode to Cheyenne to check cattle prices and market conditions. They returned with cautiously good news. "Beef prices are up," Marcus told Nora. "If they hold through spring, we should be able to make the loan payment with some to spare." "That is wonderful." Relief flooded through her. "I will not celebrate until the money is in the bank, but yes, it is good news." He pulled her close, kissing her soundly. "We might actually make it through this, thanks largely to you." The rest of winter passed in a blur of work and waiting. Nora continued her sewing, building a small but steady income. Marcus and George prepared for spring calving, repairing the barn, stockpiling supplies, making plans for how to manage the expanded herd. In March, the first calves arrived, wobbly-legged and bawling for their mothers. Nora helped where she could, sitting up through cold nights when difficult births required extra hands, warming chilled newborns by the fire, keeping the coffee hot and the food ready for the exhausted men. One night, after a particularly difficult birth that nearly lost both cow and calf, Marcus came in covered in blood and birthing fluid, triumph and exhaustion warring on his face. "They are both going to make it," he announced. Nora helped him out of his ruined clothes, heated water for him to wash, guided him to a chair by the fire. As she worked, he caught her hand. "I could not do this without you," he said quietly. "I know I have said it before, but I need you to really hear it. You are not just helping with sewing and cooking. You are my partner in every sense. This ranch, this life, it is ours together. I know." She knelt beside him, her hand on his knee. "And I love it. I love this life, this place, and most of all, I love you. I love you too. More than I knew it was possible to love someone." He cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I think we are going to make it, Nora. Against all odds, we are actually going to make it." She believed him. After months of hard work, sacrifice, and partnership, she could see the future they were building together. It would not be easy, ranching never was, but they would face it together. Spring brought more than calves. It brought wildflowers carpeting the prairie, warm winds that felt like a benediction after the brutal winter, and the departure of George Patterson. "I have a sister in California," he told them over breakfast one morning in April. "She wrote me. Her husband died and she needs help with her farm. I have been thinking it is time I moved on, helped her out." Nora felt a pang of sadness. George had been kind to her from the beginning, a steady presence on the ranch. "We will miss you." "I will miss you both too, but it is time." He looked at Marcus. "You have good help now, the best kind. A partner who loves this place as much as you do." Marcus shook George's hand firmly. "Thank you for everything. I could not have built this ranch without you. You built something fine here, Marcus. Take care of it. Take care of each other." After George left, it was just the two of them on the ranch, working harder than ever but somehow lighter, freed by their partnership and love. They hired day laborers for the heaviest work, but mostly they managed alone. In May, they drove the cattle to market in Cheyenne. The prices held as predicted, and when all was counted, they had enough not only to make the loan payment but to keep a small cushion for next year's expenses. "We did it," Marcus said as they stood in the bank, the receipt for the loan payment in his hand. "We actually did it." Nora felt tears of relief prick her eyes. "We did." That night in a hotel in Cheyenne, a rare luxury they celebrated. Marcus took her to a restaurant, the finest in the city, where they ate steak and potatoes and pie still warm from the oven. Afterward, they walked the streets hand in hand, looking in shop windows, enjoying the novelty of being in a city together. "You miss this?" Marcus asked, gesturing to the buildings and crowds. "The city life?" "Not even a little," Nora answered honestly. "Everything I want is back at the ranch with you." He stopped walking, pulling her close despite the people moving past them on the boardwalk. "You have made me so happy, Nora, happier than I ever imagined I could be. When I placed that advertisement, I was looking for help, for companionship. I never dreamed I would find love, real love, but I did. I found you. I found you too," she whispered, "and I found myself, the person I was always meant to be." They returned to the ranch the next day, driving the wagon over familiar roads, both eager to be home. As they crested the hill and saw the house in the valley below, Nora felt a surge of pure contentment. This was home. This was where she belonged. The summer passed in hard work and simple joys. They expanded the herd with the extra money from the cattle sale. Nora's garden flourished, providing fresh vegetables for their table and enough to preserve for winter. Her sewing business continued to grow, and she was able to save money steadily. In August, Nora woke one morning with a strange feeling in her stomach. She had been tired lately, more emotional than usual. When she realized her monthly courses were late, she felt a flutter of hope mixed with nervousness. She waited another week to be sure, then told Marcus one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, "I think I am with child." He turned to her, eyes wide. "You think? Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be without seeing a doctor. All the signs are there." A grin spread across his face, wide and joyful. "We are going to have a baby. We are going to have a baby." Saying it out loud made it real, and suddenly she was laughing and crying at the same time. Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully as if she might break. "This is the best news. The very best news. Are you happy?" "I am terrified and thrilled and so happy," she admitted. "Are you?" "Happier than I have words for." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Our child. Yours and mine. A family, Nora. We are going to be a family." They told Margaret and Tom the next time they visited, and Margaret immediately took Nora under her wing, offering advice and reassurance. "It is hard work, bearing and raising a child, especially out here," Margaret said frankly. "But it is worth every moment, you will see." As autumn painted the prairie gold and red, Nora's belly swelled with the growing child. Marcus became impossibly protective, trying to keep her from any heavy work, but she refused to be treated like an invalid. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she reminded him. "I am strong and healthy. I will be fine." But she did accept his help with the heavier chores, and she was secretly grateful for his attentiveness. As winter approached again, they prepared not just for the cold but for the birth that would come in late winter or early spring. The second winter was easier than the first, perhaps because they knew what to expect, or perhaps because they faced it as a true partnership now. They had hired a young man named Jack to help with the winter work, and his presence eased some of the physical burden on Marcus. Nora spent the dark winter months sewing tiny clothes, knitting blankets, preparing for the baby. Margaret visited when weather allowed, bringing advice and supplies, her friendship a lifeline during the isolated months. On a bitter cold night in February, Nora woke to pain rippling across her belly. She touched Marcus's shoulder, her voice calm despite the fear. "It is time." Marcus was instantly awake, his face pale in the lamplight. "Are you certain?" "Yes. You need to get Margaret." He pulled on his clothes in record time, kissing her quickly. "I will be back as fast as I can. Will you be all right alone?" "I will manage. Just hurry." After he left, riding hard through the dark to the Collins ranch, Nora focused on breathing through the contractions. They came regularly, building in intensity. By the time she heard horses outside, the pain was significant, and she was grateful to see Margaret bustle through the door with Marcus close behind. "Let me look at you, dear," Margaret said, her calm competence immediately soothing. "Marcus, boil water and get clean linens. Then stay close in case we need you." The labor lasted through the night and into the morning. Margaret coached her through each contraction, her steady presence grounding Nora when the pain threatened to overwhelm her. Marcus hovered anxiously, holding her hand when allowed, pacing when sent away. As dawn broke on a new day, painting the snow outside in shades of pink and gold, Nora gave a final push and heard the most beautiful sound in the world, her baby's cry. "It is a boy," Margaret announced, wrapping the squalling infant in a clean blanket. "A healthy, strong boy." She placed the baby in Nora's arms, and Nora looked down at the red, wrinkled face with a love so fierce it stole her breath. Tiny fists waved and dark blue eyes squinted at the bright world. "Marcus," she called softly. He came to the bedside, looking down at his son with wonder written across his face. "He is perfect. You are perfect. Thank you, Nora. Thank you for this gift." "What should we name him?" Nora asked. They had discussed names during the long winter evenings but had never quite decided. Now, looking at their son, Marcus said, "What about James? It was my father's name. James O'Sullivan." Nora tested the name. "I like it, James it is." Margaret stayed for 2 days, helping Nora learn to nurse the baby, teaching her the basics of infant care, ensuring both mother and child were healthy. Before she left, she pulled Nora into a warm embrace. "You did wonderfully, dear. You are a natural mother. And you have built a good life here with Marcus. I am proud to know you." "I could not have done any of this without your friendship," Nora said, meaning it deeply. "Thank you for everything." The weeks following James's birth were exhausting and exhilarating. Nora was amazed by how much time and energy such a small person required. Marcus helped whenever he could, walking the floor with a crying baby at night, changing soiled cloths, fetching and carrying so Nora could rest. "I never knew I could be this tired," Nora said one morning after a particularly sleepless night. "You are amazing with him," Marcus said, watching her nurse their son with a tender expression. "A natural mother, just like Margaret said. I am terrified I am doing everything wrong." "You are not. Look at him. He is healthy and growing. He is loved. What more does he need?" As winter gave way to spring, James grew stronger and more alert. His dark blue eyes stayed dark, and dark hair grew on his head, making him look like a tiny version of Marcus. Nora would sometimes catch her husband holding their son, talking to him quietly about the ranch, the cattle, the life they were building. "Do you think he understands anything you are saying?" she asked one evening, amused. "Maybe not the words, but the feeling behind them. I want him to know how much he is loved, how much we wanted him." Marcus looked up from the baby to Nora. "I want him to grow up knowing his parents chose each other, chose this life, chose him, that everything we do is out of love. He will know," Nora promised. "How could he not when he has you as a father?" That spring and summer, they fell into a new rhythm as a family of 3. James was an easy baby, quick to smile, sleeping well at night once he passed the first difficult months. Nora wore him in a sling while she worked, gardening and cooking with her son against her chest. Marcus built a cradle that sat in the main room so they could keep James close while they went about their daily tasks. The ranch continued to prosper. The cattle herd grew, prices remained stable, and they were able to save money for the first time. They built an addition onto the house, expanding it to include a proper bedroom for James and a larger kitchen for Nora. The work was hard but satisfying, watching their home grow along with their family. On James's first birthday, they invited Tom and Margaret for dinner. Nora had made a small cake, and they all laughed as James smashed his fist into it, smearing frosting everywhere. "Look at him go," Tom said with a chuckle. "He is going to be a rancher, that one. No hesitation." "He is going to be whatever he wants to be," Marcus said, wiping frosting off his son's face. "But I hope he learns to love this land like we do." That night, after their guests had left and James was asleep in his cradle, Marcus and Nora sat on the porch together. It had become their favorite time, these quiet moments after the work was done, sharing the peace of evening. "You ever think about how different things could have been?" Marcus asked. "If you had not answered my advertisement, if I had sent you away when I learned about the dowry." "I try not to," Nora admitted. "It frightens me, thinking how close I came to losing this, losing you." "Your presence has been worth more than gold," Marcus said quietly. "More than any dowry could ever be. You have given me a home, a family, a purpose beyond just surviving. You have given me everything that matters." Nora leaned against his shoulder, feeling the solid strength of him. "You saved my life, Marcus, literally. I had nothing and nowhere to go. You gave me a chance when you did not have to. You looked past my lies and saw who I really was, who I could be." "We saved each other," he corrected. Two people who were alone, finding each other against all odds, building something beautiful together. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge overhead. In the distance, they could hear the cattle settling for the night. Closer, through the open door, they heard James make a small sound in his sleep. "I want more," Nora said suddenly. Marcus turned to look at her. "More what?" "More of this. More children, more years together, more life. I want to grow old with you on this ranch. I want to watch James grow up and maybe give him brothers and sisters. I want to build something that lasts, something we can pass on to our children and their children." "I want that too," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "Every bit of it." 2 years later, Nora gave birth to a daughter they named Elizabeth after Nora's mother. She had blonde hair like her mother and her father's gray eyes. James, now 3, was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. They added more land, expanded the herd, built a new barn. Jack, the young ranch hand, proved reliable and hardworking, eventually becoming a trusted employee and friend. Life was not without its challenges. There were harsh winters that tested them, summers of drought that worried them, cattle prices that fluctuated unpredictably. But they faced every challenge together, their partnership strengthened by each trial overcome. When James was 7 and Elizabeth 4, Nora gave birth to twins, boys they named Samuel and Thomas. The house that had once seemed too large for just Marcus now rang with the sounds of children, laughter and crying, running feet and shouted questions. "How do you manage?" Margaret asked one day, visiting to find Nora calmly cooking dinner while James practiced his letters. Elizabeth played with dolls, and the twins toddled around creating cheerful chaos. "I just do," Nora said with a smile. "The same way I managed everything else, one step at a time." Marcus came in from the barn in time to hear her answer. He caught her around the waist, kissing her cheek despite the children giggling at their parents' affection. "She makes it look easy," he said, "but I know better. She is the strongest person I have ever met." "You say that often," Nora said, turning in his arms, "because it is true, and because I never want you to forget it." He looked around at their children, their home, the life they had built. "This is everything I never knew I needed. Everything I did not know I was missing until you arrived with nothing but a carpetbag and a guilty secret. Best secret I ever kept, and best confession I ever made," Nora replied. Years passed in a rhythm of seasons and growth. James grew tall and strong, learning the ranch work at his father's side. Elizabeth proved to have her mother's practical nature and her father's love of the land. The twins were handfuls of energy and mischief, but sweet-natured and kind. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Marcus took Nora into Cheyenne for a celebration, leaving the children with Margaret and Tom. They stayed at the same hotel where they had celebrated making the loan payment, ate at the same restaurant, walked the same streets. "Do you remember how terrified I was?" Nora asked as they strolled hand in hand. "Coming here as a mail-order bride, not knowing what to expect. I remember a brave woman who confessed her lies rather than build a marriage on deception," Marcus said. "I remember falling in love with you more each day, watching you transform my house into a home, seeing you face every challenge with courage and grace. I remember a kind man who showed me mercy when he could have turned me away, who saw value in me when I had nothing to offer but myself." She stopped walking, turning to face him. "You told me once that my presence was worth more than gold. Did you mean it?" "With all my heart. Then and now and always." He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs gentle on her cheeks in a gesture that had become familiar over the years. "You are the most precious thing in my life, Nora. You and our children, this family we have built, it is worth more than all the gold in California. "I love you so much," she whispered. "I love you too. More than words can express." They returned to the ranch the next day, eager to see their children. James met them at the door, nearly as tall as his mother now at 10 years old. "Mama, Papa, you are home. The twins missed you terribly. Elizabeth and I kept them entertained, but they wanted you." The twins came running, launching themselves at their parents with shouts of joy. Elizabeth followed more sedately, but with a smile bright as sunshine. That night, with all the children finally asleep, Marcus and Nora sat on their porch as always, looking out at the land they loved. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked quietly. "Leaving Philadelphia, coming to this hard life?" "Never, not once." Nora took his hand, threading their fingers together. "This is where I belong, with you, with our children on this land. Every hardship we have faced has been worth it for the life we have built together." "We have built something good here," Marcus agreed. "Something that will last." And it did last. The ranch grew and prospered over the years. James eventually took over much of the day-to-day operations, running the ranch with his father until Marcus was content to step back and let his son lead. Elizabeth married a young rancher from a neighboring property, staying close to home. The twins, inseparable as always, worked the ranch together, each bringing different strengths to the operation. Through it all, Marcus and Nora remained partners in every sense. They weathered good years and bad, celebrated births and mourned deaths, watched their children grow and have children of their own. Their love, forged in the crucible of that first difficult year, only grew stronger with time. On their 30th anniversary, surrounded by children and grandchildren, Marcus raised his glass in a toast. "To my wife, who came to me with nothing but courage and honesty, who has been my partner, my love, my best friend for 30 years, who gave me a home, a family, and a life richer than I ever imagined possible. Your presence has been worth more than gold, Nora O'Sullivan, worth more than anything in this world." Nora, gray now threading through her blonde hair but her eyes still bright, raised her own glass. "To my husband, who saw value in me when I had nothing to offer, who took a chance on a desperate woman and gave her a life beyond her wildest dreams. I love you, Marcus, today and always." Their family cheered, glasses clinking, children and grandchildren celebrating the love that had built this legacy. That night, alone again in their room, they held each other close. 30 years, Nora marveled. "It seems like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once." "I remember every moment," Marcus said. "Your arrival, your confession, the way you worked so hard to prove yourself, falling in love with you, our wedding day, the birth of each of our children. Every joy and every struggle, I would not change a single moment. Neither would I." She nestled closer to him. "You are my home, Marcus, you always have been. And you are mine." They drifted to sleep like that, together as they had been for 30 years and would be for the rest of their lives. Years continued to pass. The ranch that Marcus had started alone and built with Nora became a true family enterprise, spanning generations. They added more land, diversified into horses as well as cattle, became one of the most respected operations in the territory, and eventually the state when Wyoming achieved statehood. Marcus and Nora grew old together, their love a constant through all the changes life brought. They watched their grandchildren grow, then welcomed great-grandchildren. The house they had built and expanded became the heart of a family compound, with children and grandchildren building their own homes nearby, but always coming back to the original ranch house, to the couple who had started it all. On a warm summer evening, when Marcus was 70 and Nora 68, they sat on their porch as they had done countless times over the decades. Their children and grandchildren had gathered for a celebration. some birthday or anniversary. The occasions blurred together now in the comfortable haze of age. But the young people had all gone home or to bed, leaving Marcus and Nora alone in the peaceful twilight. "I have been thinking," Marcus said, his hand finding Nora's as naturally as breathing. "About what?" "About that day you stepped off the stage in Rawhide. How young and frightened you looked, despite trying to hide it. How my life changed in that moment, though I did not know it yet." "I was terrified," Nora admitted. "Certain you would see through my lies immediately and send me back. Best decision I ever made, not sending you back." His thumb rubbed gentle circles on her hand. "You were right when you said we saved each other. I was so lonely before you came, Nora. I had the ranch, had my work, but I was just existing, not truly living. You brought life to this place. You brought love. We built it together," she reminded him. "Every bit of this, the ranch, our family, our life. We did it together." "Together," he agreed. "The way it was always meant to be." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the land they had worked and loved for so many years. In the distance, cattle grazed peacefully. Closer, they could hear their youngest grandchildren playing, their laughter carried on the evening breeze. "You think they know?" Nora asked softly. "Our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, do they understand what we built here? Not just the ranch, but the love, the partnership, the family." "They will," Marcus said confidently, "because we will tell them. We will make sure they know that love and hard work and choosing each other every day, that is what builds something that lasts." Nora leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid presence of him, changed by age but still fundamentally the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago. "I would do it all again," she said. "Every hardship, every struggle, every moment of fear and doubt, I would do it all again for this life with you." "As would I." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "You are still worth more than gold, Nora O'Sullivan, worth more than anything in this world." "And you are my heart," she replied. "You always have been and you always will be." They stayed there until the stars emerged, countless and brilliant in the Wyoming sky. Two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life and a legacy on love and hard work and unwavering partnership. The mail-order bride who had arrived with no dowry had given her cowboy something far more valuable than money or possessions. She had given him love, family, and a future. And he had given her the same in return, plus the security and home she had so desperately needed. Together, they had created something that would outlast them both: a ranch, a family, and a love story that their descendants would tell for generations to come. The story of how Marcus O'Sullivan had looked past material wealth to see the true value in a desperate woman's honesty, and how Nora Miller had found the courage to confess her lies and build a life based on truth and love. In the end, it was not gold or dowries that mattered. It was the choice two people made to face life together, to work through hardships side by side, to build something meaningful and lasting through their partnership. That was the real treasure, the true wealth that could never be measured in dollars or deeds. As the night deepened and the air grew cool, Marcus and Nora rose from their chairs and went inside, hand in hand as they had been for nearly half a century. Their home was quiet now, the celebrations over, but it was full of the echoes of all the life and love it had held over the years. They prepared for bed with the ease of long practice, moving around each other in the comfortable dance of a couple who knew each other completely. As they settled under the quilts that Nora had made years before, Marcus pulled her close. "Thank you," he whispered into the darkness. "For what?" "For answering my advertisement, for being brave enough to come west, for being honest with me when it would have been easier to lie, for loving me, for giving me this beautiful life." "Thank you for seeing me," Nora replied, for seeing past the lies to who I really was, for giving me a chance, for loving me back, for making me a partner in every sense of the word. Always partners, Marcus murmured. Always together. Always, Nora agreed. They drifted to sleep in each other's arms. Two souls who had found their perfect match in the wild, beautiful landscape of Wyoming territory, who had built something extraordinary from the simplest of beginnings, an honest heart and a willingness to take a chance on love. The ranch would continue for generations, a testament to their hard work and vision. Their children and great-grandchildren would work the land, raise cattle, build their own families. The O'Sullivan name would become synonymous with integrity and hard work in Wyoming. But more than the material legacy, Marcus and Nora left behind a story of love, of two people who chose each other despite uncertain beginnings, who built a partnership based on honesty and respect, who faced every challenge together and emerged stronger for it. The mail-order bride with no dowry had given her cowboy everything that truly mattered, and he had recognized the value of her presence, worth far more than any amount of gold or material wealth. Together, they had proven that the greatest riches in life were not measured in money but in love, family, and the life built together through dedication and partnership. Their story became legend in the family, told and retold to each new generation. How Grandma Nora had arrived with nothing but a carpetbag and a guilty secret. How Grandpa Marcus had valued honesty over wealth and chosen love over material gain. How together they had built not just a successful ranch, but a family legacy rooted in love and integrity. And on quiet summer evenings, when the family gathered at the old ranch house, someone would inevitably step onto the porch where Marcus and Nora had spent so many hours together. They would look out at the land, at the cattle grazing in the distance, at the mountains rising against the sky, and they would understand what their ancestors had known. That love, real and true and tested by hardship, was the foundation on which everything worthwhile was built. That choosing each other, day after day, through good times and bad, was what created a legacy that lasted. That sometimes the most valuable things in life came without a price tag, offered freely from an honest heart. The ranch thrived for generations, but it was the love story at its foundation that truly endured. Marcus and Nora O'Sullivan, the cowboy and his mail-order bride, had created something beautiful and lasting. Not through wealth or advantage, but through courage, honesty, hard work, and above all, love. Their presence in each other's lives had been worth more than gold. It had been worth everything. And the life they built together, filled with children and grandchildren, with hard-won successes and challenges overcome, with laughter and tears and unwavering partnership, stood as proof that the greatest treasures were not found in bank vaults or strongboxes. They were found in the courage to be honest, the wisdom to see true value, the strength to work together, and the grace to choose love above all else. That was the legacy Marcus and Nora left behind, a legacy that would echo through generations, inspiring their descendants to seek the same honest, hard-working, loving partnerships that had built the O'Sullivan Ranch from nothing into something extraordinary. In the end, it was a simple truth that sustained them through 52 years of marriage before they passed within months of each other, neither able to bear life without their partner. The simple truth that they had been meant to find each other, two souls perfectly matched, building a life and love that would stand as a testament to the power of choosing each other, every single day, no matter what challenges arose. The mail-order bride had arrived with no dowry, but she had brought everything that truly mattered, and her cowboy had been wise enough to recognize that her presence was worth more than gold, worth more than anything money could buy. Together, they had proven that the greatest wealth was love freely given and gratefully received, and that such love could build an empire more lasting than any fortune.